And on Saturday, Indonesian Modest Fashion Week was held in Melbourne, Victoria. In a remarkable move this year, Perwira incorporated a non-profit group to serve Indonesians residing in Victoria, organized this event to support the Indonesian government's initiative to establish itself as the global hub of modest fashion. Now let's have a look at this following coverage, courtesy of See Today correspondent in Australia, Muhammad Andri.
Quarter of Melbourne's population was born overseas, making it one of the world's most multicultural cities. And through this diversity, Melbourne has become the Australia's fashion capital.
Melbourne is Australia's fashion capital, the headquarters for the two major Australian fashion retail. International fashion events have been held in Melbourne annually to mark the city as the place for the people in fashion industry.
Perwira Inc. is a non-profit group founded in 1981 to serve Indonesians residing in Victoria, Australia. Its objective to encourage Indonesian merchandise and cultures and to celebrate the richness of Australian diversity. In a remarkable move this year, the organization's committee organized the Indonesian Modest Fashion Week Melbourne to support Indonesian government's initiative to establish itself as the global hub of modest fashion.
I think this is wonderful that the Indonesian community is trying to promote their culture and their traditions. And in Australia, it's always welcome. And the sharing of culture and knowledge is very welcome in Australia. And this event, I think, is the first, for the beginning, and we hope it becomes an annual feature. So Indonesian community is well entrenched in Australia. There's lots of students studying at various universities, and also they have various places of worship. And I think their culture is celebrated a lot with the community, I think. And Indonesia, Australia has very big ties going back centuries as well. I think the Indonesian community could trace their relationship with the First Nations people 400 years ago when the Moccasins came here. So there's big traditions.
In its first year, Indonesian Modest Fashion Week Melbourne featured 11 designers from Indonesia. One of them is Najwa Yanti with her brand Bella Barik.
Alhamdulillah, I have an audience already. I have a little niche market here. Najwa Bella Barik. It has, mixture of Indonesian heritage such as tenun, like batik, like songket, like jumputan. The wasra of Indonesia. I think the audience of Australian Indonesian here love to watch and love to wear everything about fashion with a touch of ethnic. And if you wear a modest with ethnic touch, you can have a added value.
Invited guests include Indonesian and Australian government officials, buyers, selected traders, and local Australian designers. This event is committed to involving professional fashion events and people in the industry.
We're fortunate to have Indonesian designers come all the way to Australia and show their designs, but more importantly, it's helping develop the trade and business relationships also between Australia and Indonesia. This is building a great bilateral relationship between Indonesia and Australia, and I think the important thing also is that as an Indonesian community here in Australia, they're helping Australians become more informed about what Indonesia is about, what Indonesian culture is about. It's not just about Bali. It's a whole archipelago. It's a whole nation. It's of diversity, and these fashion shows help bring those messages so that they help educate and inform the Australian public about Indonesia as a whole.
This first event was warmly welcomed by the local community in Australia, and of course, through its multicultural diversity, modest clothing will always have a comfortable place in the Australian fashion market. This event is a concrete form of how the Indonesian community in Australia supports the Indonesian government's program to become the center of modest fashion in the world. Muhammad Andri, See Today, Melbourne.